I would be scrolling on Instagram and I'd be like, if I don't like this reel, this person is gonna die in the next couple of days. Like, what? Because at all times, we have two options. We can live in trust or we can live in fear. Maybe I'm a murderer, maybe not. So I decided to start befriending my OCD. And so my anxiety became less and less. Welcome back to the Vulnerability School podcast. I'm your host, Jenna Jarvis, and this is the Vulnerability School podcast, where I hope that you can feel a little more human as you listen to this and just realize that you are not alone in anything that you are experiencing. And today's episode is all about OCD is my motherfucking superpower, and how I came to this realization and how I apply this now into my life. I was having a conversation with my cousin the other day, and she's bi, and I was like, oh, it's just so fascinating to me that you look at women, like, or you fantasize about women. I was like, when you're out and about, do you look for men or do you look for women? And she's like, oh, oftentimes I notice the women. And I was like, that's so crazy. Like, I've never in my life experienced that, and it's like hard for me to comprehend. Like, my mind just doesn't go there. And she's like, that's exactly how I feel about you and your intrusive thoughts with OCD. Like, I can't even comprehend that your brain goes there. And I was like, oh fuck. I was like, that is such a good analogy to like understand how someone feels as an outsider to OCD. So I've been on this OCD journey for like my entire life. My very first thing I remember that happened with my OCD is I would touch things 4 times with my pinky. And if I didn't, I was convinced that my dad would die. Now, I'm not exactly sure where my OCD started, but I do know that after I was sexually abused when I was little, that's when I really started noticing it. And so sometimes I think it takes a traumatic event to really make it start, but other people, maybe they just have it their entire lives. I wrote here kind of a little definition of like, what is OCD to help people understand. It's a mental health condition where someone gets stuck in a loop of either two things, obsessions or compulsions. The ways that my OCD has manifested, starting from when I was 4, I used to touch things 4 times with my pinky or my dad would die. The thing about OCD is it fixates on your biggest love, something that you care about so much, and turns it into your biggest fear. So for example, my dad has been my best friend my entire life. Like, he is my person from a young age. I was so terrified that my dad was gonna die. So my OCD is fixated on that. And then next, like, I experienced a lot of narcissistic abuse as a child, and that and OCD is just not a good mix. Like, with narcissistic abuse, you're already doubting every single part of you. You're questioning who you are. Like, you're just having all of these thoughts, and then top that off with OCD, where you are questioning even deeper who you are and what your intentions are, and if you're a good person, if you're a bad person. It just completely amplifies that process. Then I started experiencing moral OCD, like, am I a good person? Am I a bad person? Am I a good person? Am I a bad person? Constantly overanalyzing everything, and I never knew I had OCD growing up, but looking back, I'm like, I overthought everything my entire life, but that's all I ever knew. Like, I've only ever overthought everything my entire life. Like, I remember having intrusive thoughts my entire life of like, I would see someone walking down the street and I just like have this glimpse into them like killing me and stabbing me with a knife, and like, or like, I even have crazy OCD intrusive thoughts now where I'll just be driving down the road. Like yesterday, I was on the back of a scooter and I saw this rope in the street, and I just had this flash of like, it's gonna wrap around your neck and you're gonna die. Like, crazy. And it's so sad to think that I experienced this like all growing up, and I didn't know that it wasn't normal. OCD, so it will fixate on one thing. Once you kind of figure out that thing, it will jump to the next thing. And something I experienced my entire childhood, being raised Mormon, was scrupulosity. Yeah, being raised in a high demand religion, so much is expected of you. You are constantly trying to be better. I lived in fear my entire life that God was mad at me, that I was just like one wrong move away from completely losing myself to the devil. Yeah, I was terrified of hell, that I was gonna go to hell, so I watched every little thing that I did. I remember starting at 12 years old, I would wake up every single day, and the first thing I would do was read my scriptures and write 10 things I was grateful for in my journal every single day, because if I didn't do that, like, the devil was going to get me. But if I started the day with the Lord, it would not get me. Okay? Yeah, that carried on. And then I experienced intense relationships, like even with my like high school sweetheart. I had so many doubts, ruminating thoughts constantly, and I was experiencing relationship OCD, but I had no idea. Yeah, so the scrupulosity, I went on a 2-year Mormon mission to Argentina, and the whole time I was hyperfixated on like, am I good enough? Am I good enough? Am I good enough? Your success was really measured at that time by the amount of baptisms you had, like the amount of people you baptized into the Mormon faith. And I only baptized 7 people, which was really not high for being in Argentina. And so I really did not think that I was worthy as a human. And I would like just think I needed to go home all the time. Like I would call the mission president, the person that was in charge of all the missionaries, and I would just be like, I'm not worthy to be here. And he'd be like, what do you need to confess? What sins? And I'd be like, I don't know, but I just know I'm not supposed to be here. It's like even growing up in high school, like I remember the first time a guy touched my boobs, I like literally there's no boob here. But I called my church leader immediately after and I had to confess all my sins. I was constantly confessing all of my sins to an older man, which is so creepy, and thinking that any sexual desires I had were of the devil, and that really like disconnected me with my body. Really intense experience with OCD on my mission, just constantly thinking God hates me. Also thinking that my whole childhood, like God hates me, always living in fear. To the point that, yeah, I came home from my mission, I felt unworthy. I wanted to go on another mission to prove myself. Usually Mormon missions for women are 18 months, but I was so also obsessive that I extended my mission. That's why it was almost 2 years, because I felt like I didn't do enough to serve the Lord and I needed to extend my time, which is so sad. Like I dedicated like 18 months of my life to knocking door to door, teaching people about Jesus. And at the end of that, I was like, I didn't do enough. Like, girl, you paid $10,000 to be here and you dedicated 24 hours every single day of your time to this church and you think that you haven't done enough. Like, how sad is that? And anyways, come home from my mission and I start experiencing even more intensely relationship OCD, constantly questioning things in my relationship. I got into a relationship really fast and got engaged, and I would just question so much about my partner. I didn't even know him that well. Like, we were so young, and getting married after 3 months is crazy. But I remember just fixating on little things about him, like the way that he dressed, or sometimes the way that he'd talk, or like the words he would use, just like hyper fixating on these little tiny details that did not matter. And it would be like, but I couldn't stop thinking about them. And I experienced this in each relationship, and I had no idea that it was OCD. Like growing up, you think OCD is just people are like super clean, or like I didn't even know that touching things 4 times with my pinky was an OCD thing. So yeah, relationship OCD has been a huge one for me, especially because I experienced narcissistic abuse when I was younger. So when you experience that when you're younger, you tend to experience it in your romantic relationships because that is the love that you think you deserve. And so I would experience intense relationship OCD in these relationships with men that were very toxic for me. So not only would I question the good relationships, but I would also question the really bad relationships. Like, is it me? Am I doing something wrong? Did I actually offend him? Was I not a good enough partner? Did I not give myself to him enough sexually? Was I not this? Am I too much? Am I like constantly questioning? Like, I cannot tell you how many years of my life I have lost to OCD. There'll be so many episodes on this because there's just so much to talk about. OCD is so misdiagnosed. Like, even going to OCD therapy, like, I feel like my therapist didn't even understand OCD. And going to regular therapy, that's where I found out I had OCD. This is after several relationships that just wrecked me because I was just continuing the patterns from my childhood and I didn't know. And my therapist told me I had OCD. Like, she told me that touching something 4 times with my pinky was OCD. But she didn't really tell me much more because genuinely I don't think she had the education. I don't think she knew much more. Yeah, and then another little weird fixation I had was information OCD. Like, I found out my mom was adopted and I became obsessed with finding her biological family. And so I found them, and then I would want to find another person in her biological family, and like another person. And I would stay up for hours. Like, I would not sleep. I remember my partner at the time was just like, Jenna, like, I wouldn't participate in family activities because I was just researching constantly. All I could do was research. And because I was obsessed with finding information, but it was never enough. You know, I found the biological family, I found the next thing, found the next cousin, the next aunt, the next uncle, but it was just like, nope, had to keep going. And I had no idea that this is information OCD. And then like my whole life, I had a really hard time making decisions. And I didn't know this was OCD, but I would just question every single decision. Like, is this the right decision? Is this the right thing? Down to like the dumbest things. Like, I even remember in high school, I would be driving home from school and I would be like, you have to turn left right now or like something bad is gonna happen. So I would turn left. You would hear these church talks from Mormon church leaders about how like they felt the promptings of the Spirit to to turn left and then they saved someone, or like because they did that, it would just get to my head to the point like I almost couldn't function. Like I didn't want to leave the house because I was so scared I was going to make a wrong move. And then my relationships also became like that. Like I didn't want to get into any relationships because it was just like, even friendships, like I'm going to do something wrong. And because I was constantly repeating those thoughts in my head and hyper fixating on fear, that would manifest into my life. I would just become the biggest people pleaser. Like in my relationships, I would already be manifesting that it would be wrong in my head, even though I didn't understand that I was doing that. And then a relationship would just like, it would not be good and I would not be treated well. And I don't know, it was just like so sad that my whole life I had been so fixated on fear, but I had no idea. My OCD has manifested in so many ways. There was a time I like went through sexuality OCD where I was convinced that I was a lesbian, but I have never really fantasized about women. You know, I think everyone, to be honest, I think everyone's a little bi to a degree. Like, I think it's definitely a spectrum, but I'm way more like into men. That's just how I am. But sexuality OCD, like I hyper fixated on the fact that maybe I am a lesbian. And I did a whole entire mushroom trip to like focus on this and figure it out. Back to like intrusive thoughts. Like I would be scrolling on Instagram and I'd be like, if I don't like this reel, this person is going to die in the next couple of days. Like what? My brain just hyper fixates. Like if I don't do this right now, then I'm going to have a horrible future. Like thinking that I just have the power over my entire destiny, you know? Whereas we do have power over our lives, but like I believe in a higher power and a higher force. Like I am not fully in control, and surrendering is the best, most beautiful part. So I went to, intense therapy. I did so many different things. And then I was in a really, really bad spot. I started getting like obsessed with the idea of suicide and the idea of not being here anymore. I didn't feel like I had a lot of value. And this is when I was in like a really, really toxic relationship. And I got the opportunity to go do ayahuasca at Rhythmia in Costa Rica. I had so many breakthroughs there. Like one night I was just ruminating with my thoughts. And I have another episode on this. I'll link it so you guys can go watch that if you want. I think those are like my most powerful episodes I've done. I love them so far, right? And I just decided I wanted to be friends with my OCD, and instead of talking to it like it was this monster in my brain, because essentially OCD has always been there. It's trying to protect you in the best way it knows how. So I decided to start befriending my OCD. And so my anxiety became less and less. Then I'd also done several mushroom trips, which I would say my overall takeaway from doing ayahuasca and doing mushrooms and these things is to start choosing trust over fear. Because at all times, we have two options. We can live in trust or we can live in fear. Literally, we have two options, and we get to decide if we want to live in trust or live in fear. Like no matter what happens. Say for example, like the burnt toast there. I could be like, oh my God, I just burnt my toast. I'm so mad. Or I could just trust like, oh, I burnt my toast. Looks like I needed to stay longer at my house so that I could first off slow down, be more patient, and maybe I needed to do something else at the house, and maybe like choosing trust over fear. For example, if I go through a breakup and I'm just constantly living in fear, like why don't they love me? Why didn't this work out? I'm such a horrible person. I can also just choose to live in trust and make those tiny little adjustments of being like, you know what did I learn from this relationship? How am I taking this forward? And how is this making me a better person? Trusting that everything is working out in my favor. Another big takeaway I had was learning to lean into the resistance. I would repeat this all the time because a lot of times with our OCD, we will just ruminate and fixate on things like boom, 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 boom. Like instead of, am I lesbian? Oh my God, am I a lesbian? Oh my God, oh my God, oh my God. It's just like, okay, if I'm a lesbian, okay, maybe not. Just close the loop. Maybe not. Maybe I'm a murderer. Maybe not. Because if you keep ruminating, like it's just going to continue forever. The loop will just keep going. The most powerful phrase I have learned with my OCD is maybe not. Because OCD thrives on reassurance. And once you stop giving it that reassurance, that is when the magic happens. Because with OCD, the reason I say it's my superpower is because I hyperfixated on fear my entire life. And the moment I learned to shift, and it's been a slow process, but a beautiful process. The moment I learned to shift that hyper focus into trust, my life has completely transformed. From leaving Mormonism to moving to Bali to going to Burning Man to meeting the most expansive, beautiful friends because I just trust and I'm more myself and I'm more authentic and I believe that things are working out for me and working in my favor and that I am creating the life that I desire and that I'm already living in my dream reality. And I've just hyper fixated on manifestation and trusting and believing, and my life genuinely is better than I could have ever imagined. And I believe people with OCD are expert manifestors, because again, if you can hyper fixate on fear your entire life and you shift that into trust, you can achieve anything. Genuinely, you can achieve anything. I used to write in my journal every single day, I live in Bali, I am making X amount of money, I drive this car, and so many of those things have come true for me. And I used to write them like really thinking there's no way. I have manifested partners that I never in my life imagined I would be with. And I've manifested a relationship with myself and stepped into a relationship with myself that I didn't even know was possible because I learned to lean into trust. It takes time. It takes so much time. You have years and years and years of this learned behavior to hyperfixate on fear. And it is going to take years possibly, or time, to transition that fear into trust. And I know it's scary, but has your fear gotten you anywhere? Like, that's what I think about all the time. I'll get so scared. I'll be driving my scooter and I start feeling this fear like, oh my God, you're gonna crash, you're gonna die. And I'm like, I could either hyper focus on that or just be like, oh my God, I am so grateful I'm on this scooter and I'm so safe and my life is so abundant and it's so beautiful. And my energy just lightens, you know? And I could be thinking either thing in those moments, but I have trained my OCD to be more beneficial and expansive and to become my friend. Like, sometimes I'll just stop and put my hand on my heart and be like, hey, I know we are scared and I know you are trying to protect me, but the best way to protect me is to help me live in trust. Like, let's hyper focus on the good, because our thoughts create our reality. The more we focus on the good, the more it is going to manifest in our lives. Something I've hyper focused on is the words that I'm using. Instead of saying every man is the worst or every man is the worst, like, I am manifesting that into my life. Our thoughts create our reality. So if you are hyper focusing on every man is the worst, men suck, da 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 da, like, that's what you are going to be shown in your life. Whereas if you are hyper fixating on men are the best, like, men are so powerful, they're so beautiful, I'm so grateful for the good men that do exist in the world, you are going to experience more and more of that. And let me tell you firsthand, I have experienced this so much in my life because I used to hyper focus so hard on like men suck. And now I hyper focus on like men are fucking incredible. And are there still men that maybe are not my favorite? Of course, but I don't hyper fixate on them anymore because we have a choice, again, to live in trust or to live in fear. Over the past year, I've been working on this OCD PDF where I go into my entire journey of OCD and different ways and examples that I have learned to step into trust rather than stepping into fear. And the OCD PDF is now live and it's $27. You can find it, link in my bio, baby. Yeah, and I'm learning so much about OCD every single day, especially like relationship OCD is like one I'm still learning to crack the code on, because that can feel very confusing for me, because you'll hyperfixate on like, this isn't my partner, this is the right partner, this isn't. You focus on their flaws and then you just have to trust. Like, it's a whole nother layer of the test of OCD. But yeah, there's so many different modalities of like making OCD this horrible guy in your head, or just like the best things that I have found is turning my focus from fear into trust. And I have been on medication. It was great, but it numbed me, and I don't want to be numb. I want to feel my emotions. And I really do believe that suppression equals depression. And when you are not authentically being yourself and doing the things that you love and telling people how you actually feel, you are going to feel depressed. And yes, a medication may help you in that way. And I want to be really careful and talk about that because this is my personal experience. But the more that you express yourself and the more you step into what you truly want, the more free you will feel. You know, once you stop suppressing yourself, you will stop feeling as depressed. I promise you. I am a living example, you know, from someone that tried to unalive herself to is the happiest she's ever been. I'm like, it is 100% possible. And if there is one thing that I could have everyone in the world understand about OCD, it is that it doesn't need to be your enemy. It really doesn't. It can be, you know, your support and your biggest advocate and push you and propel you into the life that you dream of, because it is your superpower and it is a way to hyper fixate on the good instead of the bad. You just have have to learn how to direct it. I have so much more I could say. I could talk about this all day. I'm so grateful that you're here listening, and I hope you have the most wonderful day and that you remember that life is happening for you. It is not happening to you. The more you believe that, the more it will manifest in your reality. I hope you know that I believe in you. The magic is in you. It always has been. In the name of vulnerability, amen.